All right, good morning, everybody. This is obviously a different session this morning, not just because it's the last one of the year. Unexpectedly, we have a camera problem this morning. So that's okay. The camera we have put aside and we're doing this direct from computer. So the messages are going to be a little bit weird too, but that's all right. We'll work through that. So today, we're doing Poised. And actually, given how we've started this morning, particularly with everything failing at the last minute, we still remain poised. This is part of the value of yellow tea. It helps you stay centered in the midst. The world can be ending around you, but if you have that yellow tea, you still have your cards. You still have a hand to play. So I sent you earlier this morning a map of where we are. We're in a place called Huoshan, Huoshan, and that's southwest of Hefei. And so Hefei is the provincial capital of Anhui province. Huoshan, as I said, is southwest. And Huoshan, that whole region. So there's, I forget whether your map has a place called Luan, Luan, but both of those places, which are close together, are really famous for their tea production. The Luan for its green tea production, the Huashan, this is a tricky situation. So let's talk about this a little bit. Yellow tea is yellow tea and green tea is green tea. However, in Poised, both types of tea are produced. And it's been that way for a long time. Now, obviously, in the very beginning, it was only green tea, right? And then whenever yellow tea was invented, that process, Poised was one of the three places in Anhui started to produce some of that tea as yellow tea. So market-wise, there's confusion. Let me tell you what else went into this confusion. So after 1949, the horse that was being produced as yellow tea started to, and hold on a sec.
What happened? What happened?
I think he muted himself instead of somebody else.
Currently do that. Are we good now? Yeah, I guess we are.
All right, and as long as just a little pause here, folks, I'm going to do something to try to help make it a little easier for us to manage what's cooking, including, I'm going to open up the chat since I won't be able to see it over here. I want to make sure that John can see. Everybody, thank you. So now we're just seeing Eugenie, thank you, and Rob. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and flip back, and so you'll be
Okay,
able to.
Great. Thank you. I
see
appreciate
what's
it. I wondered why I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, my
But that's okay. Okay, so Poised, the yellow tea producers start to age out. And so by the early 1960s, there wasn't any more being produced. And as these guys got into their 70s and 80s, what the Chinese government in 1971 did was to open an institute to try and preserve that art, that craft. So this is truly amazing. So let's think about 1971. 1971 is right in the middle of the Cultural Revolution. So this actually tells you something about how China was being run at that time. Because China, in the midst of all the political upheaval, was also paying attention to small things like this. So it's truly amazing. The early political upheaval, I don't think they paid much attention to anything. But then, as it slid into the 1970s, then they started to grasp, what else do we have to take care of? And this was one of those things. So did they ask the 70 and 80-year-olds to go back to the farms and start farming? No. What they did ask them to do was to come with younger scientists and help them learn the process. Now, these guys had already not been doing it for a number of years. And so it's perhaps possible, and even in China, they say this, they believe pre-1949 Poshan, or the pre-1949 Poised, is different than the post-1971 Poised. And they can't tell you exactly how, because this art was semi-lost, although not entirely. Remembering that the art of yellow tea is the yellowing process. So the yellowing process, as we've talked about over the last two sessions, really involves a separate process between after you have fried and sometimes baked. So you fry the tea to deactivate or denature the enzyme which does oxidation, or which creates oxidation. And you bake a little bit in order to reduce the moisture. And then you do the yellowing process. As a refresher, the yellowing process by region, by farm, is all a little different. But the essential idea is to have a thermal reaction occur with the tea while you're piling it. Now, you've not heard me address it quite like that, but that in effect is what's happening, isn't it? Because you're putting it in packages, so you're piling it, it's small piles, but you're piling it, right? And you are keeping it in a temperature and moisture controlled environment. And that's what is creating the chemical reactions in order to change the tea, in order to get that flavor profile. So some people pile it 3 or 4 times within a 20-hour period. Junshan Needle Encore last week, that's a 72-hour period, and that occurs over, it occurs with many interactions, or iterations, I should say, of piling, open up, mix everything, fry it if it's too much moisture, repile, restore, and then do it again. And so Poised, unlike Encore last week, doesn't have a 72-hour window. Its window is somewhere between 18 and 24 hours in terms of that piling process. And again, the objective, what is that objective? Let's think about this a minute, because instead of using big words, feel 4 bites. I love that word, PHEO, feel 4 bites, PORBIDES. I'm not going to use that word. Instead, I'm going to use a common word. We're trying to take that green grassy flavor of green tea and end up with something that's slightly sweet or floral, has more aroma, especially aiming towards a floral aroma. And lastly, at the end, if it's done long enough, develops almost a corn aroma or a popcorn aroma, almost a roasty, but towards the roasted corn aroma. That's the objective. We're trying to move from grassy to that. Okay, what about scientifically? What is the endpoint of that? Well, with green tea, you got all these catechins, and they're doing what catechins do. You know, in test tubes, they get rid of cancer. In the body, there's lots of evidence that they help with circulation. Oh, catechins, I love catechins. The only problem is, from a digestive point of view, some people just can't tolerate a lot of catechins and polyphenols. As soon as you mediate those, so what do I mean mediate those? Change those into different polyphenols, then your system is able to absorb them better. A yellow tea is much easier to absorb on an empty system. So I ask you this. Maybe it's easier to absorb, but perhaps the yellow tea doesn't have all the alleged health benefits that green tea has. You would be surprised. It seems to have even more directed health benefits, particularly around the spleen and around the liver. I've talked about the Japanese work a little bit with yellow tea, and they called out liver long ago, 7 or 8 years ago. And then there was no follow-up in any of the other literature. Well, lo and behold, as I was reviewing the literature this week, there's plenty of follow-up in China now about the liver and the improved functionality that yellow tea is alleged to bring to the liver, as well as to the gut biome. And they feel it's because the change not only in catechins, but the degradation of the chlorophyll. That's, by the way, why it turns yellow, because the chlorophyll is degraded. The amino acids, certain of them are increased, so you get more sweetness, but you also get some other alleged health benefits with that. So there is a tremendous amount of work that's now being put into the yellow tea in terms of the study about the alleged health benefits. And as I reviewed the work this week, it looks like it's dynamite. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, that more people in China are starting to pay attention to yellow tea. As more of this stuff becomes evident, more people are saying, hey, wait a minute, I better find some yellow tea. That's hard to do. But once I find it, I better hoard it so I can have a lot of alleged health benefits. So that's the projection for the future of this yellow tea. But I started this whole discussion with talking about Poised on the market as green and yellow. So let's go back to that because this is important. This is where, right on the edge, where both legitimate and LCS players play. Because in Huashan, the area where this is grown, some farmers are purposefully growing and producing green tea. They know it, and they're not trying to trick the market. Why would they do this? when there is an increasing demand for yellow, the price keeps increasing for the yellow. So one of the things I didn't start off with, but now will complete this puzzle, is that Huashan tea, green tea, from the Tang Dynasty onwards, was tribute tea. In other words, it was recognized as very tasty, high quality green tea. So the farmers that didn't want to go to the trouble, so it's a lot of trouble. Let's think about this. It costs more. You got to have facilities to pile the tea. Oh, wait a minute. You have to be able to control humidity. You have to be able to control temperature. How inconvenient is that? That costs money. In addition, you have to be able to do it over a longer period of time. The Huashan green tea, you can be in and out in 24 hours. In other words, you bring the tea in the morning, you process it, and are finished essentially by 8 to 10 o'clock that night. Wow, the easy life. Now, all the understudy farmers, and I'm talking on their behalf, the lazy farmers. Oh, wait a minute. That's a contradiction in terms, isn't it? Lazy and farmer. All the efficient farmers. Hey, I'm only going to do this green tea because I'm still getting a great price for this. I don't have to make the investment. Let's see. I see a question here. What descriptor for green tea? I don't know what that really refers to. Jeremy, if you can ask a little bit more specifically what you're looking for, unless I'm not looking at this correctly. Can you take a look and see what that is? At any rate, I'll keep going. So this is the situation with the green tea portion of oh, did I miss something?
No, I think that the question that is being asked is, you used a term, poshao, something
Poshao.
like.
Hoshan.
Poshan, and that's the question.
Oh, I
What is
see.
that?
Oh,
Does
what
that
is that?
refer to?
That refers to the location. Look at your map. Huoshan. That's specifically the location of the tea. Okay, so tea from this area, thanks, Elise. Time immemorial has been famous. So those who did the yellow tea made investment, didn't they? And once they made investment, they realized, oh, this is lots of trouble. This takes 2 days. I have more expenses. I gotta have more people looking at this. I gotta charge more money. So those are the legitimate greeners and yellowers. Then you have the LCSers. Are the LCSers in the Hoshan area? Occasionally, but mostly no, because all the farmers know all the other farmers. And if you are a liar, cheater, or scammer next to your neighbor's going to look over the fence. Wait a minute. You're putting your tea on as yellow tea? I know that's not yellow tea. All of a sudden you get a bad rep. That's not a good thing in the tea industry. So most of that is from the outside. Most of it is, and specifically, the province that gets the worst rep for this is Sichuan. There's a lot of LCS out of Sichuan. Don't know why, maybe because it's so remote. There are other bad actors in other provinces, but every time I turn around and look, the ones that are getting caught are the ones from Sichuan. Maybe they're just not very good at doing the LCS, whereas the other ones are doing a much better job of it. So what are they doing? They're taking another hybrid or another varietal and putting it on the market as yellow tea without going through the whole process. How is that possible? isn't all yellow tea as yellow as the sun? Isn't it all bright yellow so you can tell right away? And the answer is no, because remembering that they go through a graduated process. Some do the yellowing process only for 6 to 8 hours. Some do it for 72 hours. Some are really aiming to get a yellow color. Others are aiming to achieve a flavor rather than a color. And so it's all across the board from the yellow tea producers. And realistically, the flavor cements whether you're doing yellow tea or not. It's not so much the color. I mean, if you have very distinctly yellow, so Encore really for that varietal is distinctly yellow. You can't miss that. And unless somebody's spraying on a yellow, by the way, I haven't heard of that before, but it wouldn't surprise me if some people did try to do that, but I've not heard of it. It's the flavor. And again, all the yellow teas that you've had here have a distinctive flavor. They're different than green tea. You can't make a mistake. Blindfolded side by side, you'd be able to tell right away, oh, this is yellow tea. It is not a green tea or vice versa. So that's why there's this discussion of green and yellow from Poised. Remember, the yellow is relatively recently resuscitated in Poised. So in 1980, I'm sorry, this is the wrong date. Oh, no, it's not. In 1980, they produced about 300 pounds of yellow tea from this area. And so by 1986 or 87, they were producing about 1,000 pounds. I don't know how many pounds they produced this year, but it's much more, much more. And so as the farmers have become more comfortable, but more importantly, as the market has begun to understand, hey, there are real health benefits that we didn't understand. And these health benefits are different from white tea, and they're different from green tea. So during my search this week of the literature, one of the things which was hilarious, which came up, was again this question of yellow tea and white tea, because and the confusion came around the tea that we have here called evergreen. Evergreen we don't have currently. I don't think we have that anymore currently. But the Chinese name for it has the word white in it. And this created all this confusion about this being white tea when you didn't have white tea during the Sung Dynasty. But there was a comparison by people in the tea industry saying, well, this beautiful, and really it's a green tea, which is so famous, it can't hold a candle to Poised. And realistically, they were talking again about alleged health benefits. And so a lot more information is now coming out into the literature. And so many of you may be asking, and it's a natural question. Okay, so this tea was brought back in the early 1980s. Why isn't there more information about all these teas related to alleged health benefits? Because remember, our ability to test for has improved since the 1980s. Our ability to define what actually is a health benefit has improved. Our whole understanding of the interaction with the human body has improved. So it's all of these things together that are causing all this information to start to come out now. The other thing that yellow tea in the articles that I looked at talked about was the reduction of plaque on the arteries. And this was really interesting to me because I hadn't seen that before related to yellow tea. And then as I looked at a number of other articles, there it is. So a lot of things going on with this, distinctly different than whites and greens. All of them together represent things that we want to happen for us in terms of alleged health benefits. But each of them, because the chemical composition is different, delivers a different benefit. All right. There's a question here. Yellow teas have a distinct energetic, Peter's asking this question, property as well. Isn't that a giveaway that it is indeed yellow? And this is a great observation. So Peter's observation is, look, when I drink a yellow tea, immediately my hair thickens, my eyesight improves. Oh, wait a minute. That may not have been the energetic he's referring to, but he's talking about the energetics as we've talked about them before. And there is a different energetic, and you'll see that this morning. Especially those of you who are waiting to start this because you're thirsty and you haven't had your morning tea yet. So let's go ahead and start to get ourselves ready for that. Before we actually do that, let me mention one more thing. So you've got yellow teas, because there's confusion about this as well. You have yellow teas in Anhui. You have yellow tea production in Hubei, not very much. You have yellow tea production in Hunan. That was where Encore was. And you have yellow tea production in Sichuan, real yellow tea, not LCS yellow tea. All right, so without further ado, it is just my great pleasure to bring a tea master who always has it together. Not only numinous, but every detail in great order, every cat in place, every hair in place. Bijou.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, 早上好. My name is Biju. Yeah, so we do yellow tea. It's also, it's the same. The usual, same usual. I use 3, the glass. So also I take, today, the 6 grams and 2 minutes, 170. Yeah. Oh, don't forget the temperature low, over low, 170, keeping it, so smooth, fresh. Okay, just help me.
Yeah, so as usual, the tools are 3 of these cups, a tea strainer. The temperature for this is 170 degrees. And the timing is 2 minutes. When you do it, you'll take your package, which will have 6 grams of tea in it. So as usual, Bijou is making sure all the cups are completely clean. Puts the water with dissipated heat into the kettle that has a spout so that you can control the pour. Actually, she's dissipating the steam right now. Oxygenating the water.
So I'm two hands working, okay? Doing this one half. Yeah, my hands, two hands, the safe, yeah. This page steam. So change the temperature so fast. Okay. This I
So this is pre-measured 6 grams.
this is where this is called 窑香. 窑香. So
She's gonna bring out the aroma.
this is very important. This technique, okay. Slowly.
And we set the timer for 2 minutes.
Minutes.
So one of the things that's a distinguishing characteristic of yellow tea is whether it's a bud or a bud in a leaf or a large leaf or a medium size or a small
Thank you.
size. So there are all of those within consideration as you look at yellow tea. And farmers, they know how to handle whatever cultivar that they're used to. And so Huashan is typically medium size, sometimes large size. This is a little bit larger. And these are beautiful. Buds hanging from above. All right. The other thing to understand about yellow tea, think about your notes last week from Encore. Think also about the notes from the first week of standalone, because this flavor is different. And by having your notes, as you reflect on this, you're going to be able to pick that up right away. And that's pretty important with this tea, because another aspect of yellow tea is just like the cliff teas, there's this wide range, and you don't realize it unless you go someplace which gives you scope and which gives you context. We give you context because we've got 12 of these things, and that gives you enough context so you can see that there's this wide range from very light, distinctly sweet or distinctly floral, all the way up to corn-like, popcorn, other types of roast. 2 minutes is expired. And look at this beautiful cup. So as we look at this thing, this has some yellowish to it, but not particularly as much yellow as Encore. So we're going to enter the quality arena. Let's take a sip and figure out, roll it around on our tongue. This is 170, so I can take a bigger sip. You're thinking about Where in the mouth you feel it, astringency. There's going to be some energetics with this. And we'll talk typically from a TCM standpoint in a minute, how yellow tea is regarded, but not yet. We're still in the quality arena. I'm going to take a second sip, verify what I think I understood in the first sip, and then also think about flavor and aroma. The aroma, by the way, is strongly influenced by an increase in certain compounds that the yellowing brings out, particularly linalool, Linalool. And that really makes a difference in terms of the aroma. All right, it's your turn to brew. Remember to get out your notes. Usual procedure. Draw your water, make sure the cups are absolutely clean. Cool it. Dissipate the steam. You know, Tea Master has a very nice rhythm. I'm always amazed every time I watch Bijou do this because her rhythm never varies. It's just, you could almost take a stopwatch to how long it takes her to go through this process. Be the same.
Don't forget that this is so for me it's very important. This we call 窑香 in tea factory. So cover, the shaking.
So to shake out the aroma, that's the literal translation. And you do it by applying heat, right? Tea Master is incredible. Not one drop missed the cup. But that's why she's a tea master and I'm not. When I do that stuff, the whole counter, and I'm reminded there's water all over the counter. All right. So you're catching some sense of some of the differences of yellow tea. In addition to increase in certain alcohols, and these are not the drinking alcohol, but the alcohols, the chemical alcohols within the tea, which change the flavor profile, in addition to, and that's really the aroma profile, in addition to the reduction of catechins, and then the increase in other polyphenols, you get a taste difference. Is this tea from a TCM, Chinese traditional medicine standpoint, warming, cooling, or anything else we should know? It's actually in the same category as green and white. It's cooling. And so and that's TCM. Now you, as an energetic, may not get that, and that's okay. But typically, this is recommended as it heats up, drink your yellow tea. And again, yellow tea, because it's easier on the digestive tract, you can drink a lot in a short period of time, and you don't get that nauseousness that some people will get with the green tea. So this is the characteristic from a TCM standpoint of yellow tea, and they're doing a lot more research also to see these other characteristics from a Western standpoint. All right, timer's going off. Separating the tea leaves from the tea water. All right, it's your turn to tell me about this tea. And you can start off with, okay, Jeremy says, oh, it really is yellow. And she says the dried leaves had the scent that arises in pruning roses. The wet leaves are the yellowest I've seen. The first swallow, a burst of juicy warmth. Okay, so Jeremy did a great job here because particularly on the heels of what I just said, because I talked about it being from a TCM standpoint, a cooling tea, but that doesn't mean that it leaves you with an energetic necessarily that's cooling. So Jeremy talks about a burst of warmth. She talks about it juicy warmth. I like this. And the reason I like this is because this is a tea that if you're not paying attention, you consume in under 1 minute. It's that good. It's really good. All right. And Peter follows up. Let's see. Let me get Peter's comment here. There is a juicy quality that comes with a kick. So it doesn't allow me to take it for granted, like salsa with pepper hot in it or rose with thorns. Oh, this is so interesting. It's interesting because I actually think that Jeremy was hinting around something like this, but Peter really put language to this. And that is, yeah, it's juicy, okay, but there is a flavor to this that immediately gets your attention. There's no question. And you've already caught part of the magic of Poised, because one of the things we noticed right away was the appearance of a flavor, a strong flavor right away. Rob follows up with the warm leaves had an umami scent, the wet, okay. Hold up here. The wet leaves had a scent of floral underneath the umami, and the tea water scent was a combination of ocean, umami, butter, and a hint of mushroom. So Rob has parsed this tea, and there's a lot of attention to the hints of umami. And yet, I would say that the umami in this is different than the umami in some of the green teas we've had. It's not as strong. And I think that Rob is actually indicating that by putting hints of butter. So umami and butter, that's a really nice combination to describe this, with a hint of mushroom. It's a really nice combination because it says, unlike, say, a venerable silver tip, where the umami, nobody usually says butter, nobody usually says mushroom, because you're not mediating that umami. Rob has skillfully mediated that umami. Jen says, love the nose, strong scent. Oh, wow. Strong scent of freshly risen dough, yeast, slightly sweet. You know, this captures everything very nicely, because as soon as I read it, yeah, of course it's like freshly risen dough. And that yeast, slightly sweet, great description of this, and it's not at odds with how Rob described this. Great description. That I think is my favorite description of this so far. Okay, Rob continues. It's very round on the tongue. Absolutely, extremely round and easy. And maybe I'm crazy, but I had a sense of vanilla. Not really vanilla, but something like that. Yeah, I get it. So there is like a flavoring, a subtle flavoring in this. And so I turn back to almost a corn flavoring. Rob catches it as almost a vanilla flavoring. I can't say corn direct. He can't say vanilla direct, but it's that same sense of there's stuff in here which makes you feel that it's just not a tea and not what we're used to with so many teas. And so this is, Encore stood out in the way that Encore stood out. Poised stands out in a completely different way. Great comments. Okay. I love where we're going with this because you captured the ease of drinking. You've captured, this isn't a green tea. You can tell right away this is not a green tea. You've captured the fact that there are so many interesting flavors. And unlike an oolong, which challenges you at every step, makes you wait because of the heat, this you drink right away. You get the juiciness, the roundness, the warmth. And again, that slightly yeasty rising dough situation and a nice hint of flavor injected on top of that. What could be better than a yellow tea? So sometimes you ask us about what our favorite teas are. And it's true that we live a lot in the oolong world, but that's not saying that it's our absolute favorite, because you get a tea like Poised, and for us, some weeks we want to drink that every morning. We want to start off our day every morning with Poised. It's that good. Okay, Peter, strange, but the astringency is very prominent throughout, especially all around the tongue, like a slight carbonated drink. So interesting because, yes, there is astringency, but if I were to make this comment, great comment, Peter, by the way, if I were to make this comment, I would call it muted astringency. For me, there are other teas where astringency is so prominent and it lingers so strongly that it takes almost a forward position. Yes, there is definitely astringency with this. And for me, it's also on the front of the tongue. And yes, it hangs around, but it's not prominent. It's muted and it's beautiful. Good comment. Jeremy says not roasted corn, but boiled corn and corn water aroma. I like that distinction. That's a good distinction. That's a really good distinction because yes, boiled corn water has a subtleness to it, whereas roasted corn, again, is forward, isn't it? And so all of you, Peter just now with the astringency, Jeremy with this comment, are really talking about a balance that's achieved by this blend of all these interesting flavors, nothing too forward. Love this tea because it's so balanced. And So you asked me, okay, among the yellows, if you were going to give me one that's the most balanced, this is what we would give you. If you ask me, give me the one that's the most unique, encore is what we give you. Give me one that's more roasty, standalone. So we had 3 separate examples during this set ending the year. By the way, a tribute to all of you who've stuck with us during the year. This has been a lot of fun with all of you. You continue to encourage us to bring you more and more different information, and we're enjoying doing that. Next year will be no different. We're going to start out with idyllic. We're going to have felicitous, a brand, both idyllic and felicitous are brand new reds. We just put them up within the last month, and sublime. Our first 6 sessions next year will be all about red. And so just as we're finding that the more we do these, the better it is to group a number of them together so that you can side by side, so to speak, week by week, taste similar styles, the same style, but from different areas, and start to make those differentiations. This is what context is about, and this is what this tea shop is about. Congratulations this year to all of you. I think that, as I've mentioned many times, you go around the United States, you go around China, there aren't many people like you who know as much as you know, and who have tasted as wide a range. Somebody asked me yesterday, they were in the shop, they said, if a person from China came into this shop, would they be surprised? And the answer is absolutely yes. Not just by big cup, but really by context, by how broad it is here. And this is what you're all benefiting with. Love spending the year with you. Thank you very much for supporting us during this year. And look forward very much next week to starting out with a red called Idyllic. All right, now your responsibilities are to stay healthy. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.